What's up, guys? For real quick, before we get into the video, I'm gonna do the contest again. Nobody won on the UFC 288 card, so if you want a chance to win, I've got a UFC glove autographed by Killer Miller from the Ultimate Fighter show. I've got a Holly Holm autographed picture. I've got a Donald Cerrone autographed picture. I got a Demetrius Johnson picture autographed. If you want a chance to win one of those, all you got to do is it's just for this card. My dog. It's just for this card. The way to win is you pick 3 winners. You pick the winner, the method of victory, and the round, and you only get 1 decision. So, if you want a chance to win one of those, if you're the first one to get it right, then you'll win, and I'll mail the stuff to you. And hopefully more people want to participate this time, because only a couple people tried on my last video. So, yeah, man. So if y'all are interested in that, go ahead and do that. What's up, guys? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 73, Dern versus Hill. They finally decided on a main event. They stole my Angela Hill fight from this weekend's card. But real quick, I'm going to go over the results. Had a really good week last week. Coming off UFC 288 was a few days ago. And finally had a really, really good night. I mean, my 4 biggest bets hit. As you can see right here, I had a unit on Claudio Ribeiro, first fight of the night, already in the money there. This Evliev and Jourdain parlay, that got because that was before Evliev got his new opponent scheduled, so that wound up being just a 1.5 unit play on Jourdain. And then in order to get some action on Evliev, I turned around before the event, and I added this 3-fight parlay here. That's why it's off to the side like that. I added it in later on. Originally, I just posted all you see in the center, and I added the Evliev, Jourdain, and Chekwu parlay. That was minus 150. I had I think I had a unit on that too. And then I had the Evliev, Jourdain, Chaos Williams, and Claudio Ribeiro parlay plus 275. I had a half unit on that. That hit. I had probably about I had like $75 on Braxton Smith to win, so that was a bad play. Whatever. He's relatively new in his career, and he's basically been self-trained up to this point. So just the fact that he's made it to the UFC, with as little training as he had is impressive. I know he didn't look very good, but he's still a really cool guy, and I'm still a fan of his. So, and then I had this Evliev, Jourdain, Chaos Williams, Ribeiro, Aleskarov, and Burns. That was a plus 750 parlay. I only had like $100 on that, so not too big of a loss there. But yeah, Burns got me on that one. Apparently he was dealing with an injury in that fight, supposedly, whatever. I expected there to be some takedowns one way or the other. I didn't expect it all to play out on the feet like it did, but regardless, man. And I still have an ongoing parlay going. I was gonna screenshot it and put it up on here, but I mean, I'm sure y'all believe me. But let me pull it up real quick so I can see what it is. So one of the things that I've learned to do, on these cards is, whenever your picks aren't going your way or whatever, sometimes I'll reverse my picks and I'll put like my most confident picks in a parlay, and then I'll flip around some of my other picks just in case, like the underdogs that I feel like have a good chance. I'll flip them around and I'll add them, and that's what I did with this parlay. Sorry, I got to pull it up. I should have had it ready already. Yeah, so I switched around. I believe I picked Dober to win, and I had switched it around on this parlay and picked Frivola Hold on, sorry, I'm pulling it up. Let's see here. So, so this was a parlay, a 10 fight parlay. It didn't. I guess I should have wrote down the odds because it doesn't have it on this ticket in the middle of everything. But so it's a Kenyan Chekwu, Matt Frivola, Mozar Evliev, Bilal Muhammad, Carlos Olberg, Carl Williams, Jalton Almeida, Alex Morono, Natan Levy, and Chaos Williams. So if Natan Levy, Alex Morono, Jalton Almeida, and Olberg and Carl Williams win this weekend, this parlay will hit as well. I feel like it's got a pretty good shot. I feel like that's a pretty solid parlay. And I'm glad I made this because if this hits, it'll make up for my plus 750 one that Burns knocked out of there. So yeah, my picks that I switched on this were Bilal Muhammad and Matt Frivola. So and yeah, I was pretty impressed with the guy that stepped in on short notice to fight Movsar Evliev. He looked very good, very dangerous off of his back. But of course, Evliev found a way to make it work, found a way to get the victory. But there were some times where I was really worried, in that because I had Evliev in a couple parlays that I was sweating. So, but yeah, so if and if you watch, if you're new to the channel, I put this stuff up, usually way before, a week before the event, all my stuff. And, so yeah, there have been these weeks where I save myself with the live betting or whatever. And, I usually don't, it very rarely do I lose any money. And if it is, it's usually not very much, one play will hit, another one won't, whatever. But, all that's fine to get to a week like last week where I don't remember exactly how much profit, probably 4 units of profit, probably 4.5. I didn't do the exact math, but yeah, I mean the plus 275. It was a really good card, and I've still got this parlay riding on it. So all those times where I'm sitting there, barely making any money, saving myself with the live betting, it's all good because weeks like this make up for it. So. And the difference between me and everybody else, is like I said, I give out this stuff for free. I put myself out there, and the difference between me and most channels is I don't charge for my picks or my bets. So I put all my stuff out there for everyone to see. Some of these other channels, they charge money for their bets. And if their bets don't hit, you never know about it because you're not paying for them. So, I put myself out there and, yeah, man, I'm really happy with the way that card went. And, pay-per-views are the easiest to do that on. Sorry I'm rambling so much about this. I'll put the timestamps on this video so y'all can skip this stuff if you're not interested. But yeah, like I said, if you're new to the channel, what I do is I go through, give out my picks, and at the end of the video, I give out my bets for the card. If there's ever any bets that I add, you can go to my Instagram, highkick_fight picks. That's where I post all my picks and bets on there too. So if you don't want to watch my video, you just want to see my picks and bets, you can go on there and see them there. I usually post them in the community tab on my YouTube channel as well. Sometimes I forget, but I'm pretty good about it. And I'm available on Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, Rumble, YouTube, all that. And yeah, man, let's get please like and subscribe, and let's get into the card, man. Yeah, so once again, UFC Vegas 73, Dern versus Hill. A little bit interesting that they made this fight, the main event on this card. I thought for sure they were going to use, Anthony Hill, or Anthony Smith versus Johnny Walker. Sorry, or another fight like that. I guess there's not a whole lot of fights on this card that I would consider, main event material. Maybe Andre Fialho, Joaquin Buckley, Edmund Shahbazyan, Anthony Hernandez. Yeah, But either way, man, let's get into this card. So first up, we got Steve Erceg taking on Clayton Carpenter. And Steve Erceg is 27 years old, 5'9", with a 68.5-inch reach. He is 9-1, and this is going to be his UFC debut. Yeah, he's pretty big for a flyweight, man. I thought Clayton Carpenter was a pretty big flyweight. At least he's kind of big and muscular. Looks very strong for the weight class. Steve Erceg's kind of tall and skinnier, but definitely a good frame for the weight class. So Steve is the eternal MMA flyweight champion. He has a lot of finishes on his record, lots of submission wins. He has a very good guillotine choke. Going over his record, he hasn't fought a whole lot of good competition. Lots of guys with small records, guys that have very few fights, and the biggest name that he's fought would be Shannon Ross, who we know from getting knocked out on Contender Series and then knocked out again in the UFC. So, not sure if that's impressive or not, but kind of hard to find a lot of tape on him. There's only one fight on UFC Fight Pass of his, and most of his fights are pretty much the same, almost no stand up. He gets in the clinch and gets a submission, he gets a takedown. Obviously, seems to be a good grappler and have good submissions, but it's hard to say based on the level of competition that he's taken on. He throws a lot of leg kicks when he is striking. The one fight I found where there was a bit of stand up in the first round, he got rocked pretty bad. But then he got a takedown and saved himself and was able to get the finish later on in the fight. So he looks like a really good prospect. He's going to have a 2.5 inch reach advantage in this spot, and it's going to be interesting to see how he looks in the UFC. And he's taking on Clayton Carpenter. He is 26 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. He is 7-0 and 1-0 in the UFC. And he has a lot of amateur experience as well. In addition to his 7-0 record. He started training karate and judo at 5 years old, and pretty much all he's done his whole life. Uh, he's got a great striking, good submissions, nice head movement, real fast front kicks, throws good combinations. He fights well. Either way, he can lay back and counter punch, or he can push the pace on guys. In his Contender Series fight, he got caught with a good shot. Overcame some adversity in that fight and came back to get the win. And his opponent was a very tough guy. Clayton fights well from both stances. In his last fight, I had a play on him in that spot, and he made it look pretty easy. Even though he gave up a takedown, he reversed position and ended up getting a submission. So that was pretty impressive. He will definitely have the striking advantage in this fight, in my opinion. Uh, Sorry, I was trying to get my water bottle over here. Definitely going to have the striking advantage. He's very aggressive off of his back. He'll attack submissions. Of course, he got the rear naked choke in his last fight. A lot of unknowns about the Australian prospect and erceg. So that's scary. But I got to go with Carpenter here, and I'm going to say by decision. If he does win by knockout, I would say he may catch Steve with one of those fast kicks. But it's with there being so much unknown factors on erceg. If Clayton had a lot better price on him, I would definitely have attacked him. I'll probably throw him in a parlay or two. But right now, I mean, it's pretty early, and he's already like a minus 300 favorite. So not a lot of meat on the bone there. Contemplating maybe doing a 2-man parlay, but whatever. But I don't know, man. It's just it's just too much of a risk with too little return, really, for me to take a play on him in this card. Unfortunately, as much as I really want to. So, too bad, I guess. But and next up, we got Takashi Sato taking on Themba Gorimbo. And Takashi Sato is 32 years old. He's 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. He is 16-6, and he is 2-4 in the UFC. So Sato's coming off a bad head kick knockout in his last fight. And, he's got power in his hands. He's a pretty good striker, but he struggles with the takedowns and the grappling. And the submission, defense, and awareness have always been kind of his weak point in his game. So, and honestly, this is a fight that I feel like could possibly go either way. Sato has fought the way tougher competition, but he doesn't seem to learn or improve from fight to fight. That as far as I could tell, he's kind of set in his ways, and his style of fighting, which is get the knockout or get knocked out. It's fun to watch, but it would serve him well against a taller guy like this, to throw 3 or 4 punch combinations, as he goes into the pocket, because he's probably going to be out of range on the first few that he throws, but he doesn't do that very much, man. He technically only throws 1 to 2 punches at a time. But to be fair, if he stuffs the takedowns here, he has a really good shot at winning this fight. I just don't know that he's going to be able to. He's been taken down in a lot of his fights, so And he's taking on Themba Gorimbo. He is 32 years old, 6 foot tall, with a 76.5 inch reach. He is 10-4 and 0-1 in the UFC. Uh, so Themba is, a tall, long guy for the division. He will have, according to Tapology, a 3.5 inch reach advantage. And but on the UFC side, it says a 4 inch reach advantage. So I don't know, which is which. But either way, it's a good bit of reach. His debut was against AJ Fletcher. It's pretty tough fight. For your first fight in the UFC. AJ's a really tough guy. He has decent takedowns in wrestling, good jiu-jitsu. He has 6 wins by submission on his record. Thimba will have the wrestling advantage in this fight, I think. And, he's not very good off of his back, but I don't think he's going to have to worry about that in this fight. Sato doesn't really go for takedowns at all, unless Sato drops him and then jumps on top of him. But, I feel like the UFC is really trying to do Themba a favor here because he kind of jumped in on short notice, against AJ Fletcher. So, I think Themba's going to have to use his takedowns and get the submission. He shouldn't play around on the feet if he doesn't have to with this guy. And, his I think he needs to get a win in the UFC before he starts taking risk and going out there and striking with powerful guys like that. He needs to just concentrate on getting this win, because they might not give him another shot. So I'm taking Themba. I think he's going to get the takedowns. I think I'm going to take him by sub in round 2, probably rear naked choke. Next up, we got Orion Cosce, or is it Koski? I don't know. Orion Cosce taking on Gilbert Urbina. And Cosce is 28 years old. He is 5'11 with a 71-inch reach. He's 8-1, and he is 1-1 in the UFC. Is he really only 1-1? I feel like he has more fights than that. No, 1-1. I guess I was thinking of his fight on the Contender Series. So if I'm not mistaken, Cosce has a wrestling background. He's pretty wrestling heavy in his fights. All but one of his wins have been by finish. He got knocked out by Phil Rowe in his debut, but Phil's a really big guy with good striking, so no shame there really. He's training that Team Alpha Male, so you can expect him to have a really good game plan. Once again, he's taken on a real tall guy. It seems like that's all he's fought, in all of his fights. So, remember, he took on Phil Rowe. He's really tall for the weight class. Then he took on Blood Diamond, another really tall guy, tall kickboxer. And now Gilbert, is 6'3", so that's all he's fought, So, I guess he's getting good at it. So, hopefully the Koski's learned from his mistakes, and because he did get knocked out by Phil Rowe. So, he has heavy hands. His boxing isn't horrible. He's most comfortable with his wrestling, though. He has struggled to make weight before, so keep an eye on that if you're planning on betting on this fight. You'll see him feint the takedowns to set up his strikes, which is a really good tactic. He does seem to be making improvements with his striking from fight to fight. He has looked a lot better. He's really good in the clinch. He does a good job of controlling the underhook. He has good throws and trip takedowns. Another thing to watch is if he struggles with the weight again, because he usually slows down considerably in the third round, especially if he's really pushing, his wrestling game, through the first 2 rounds. So keep an eye on that. If he has a bad weight cut, he's probably going to be gassed out the second round. So do keep an eye on that if you're planning on betting on him. And he's taking on Gilbert Urbina. He is 27 years old, 6'3", with a 74-inch reach. He is 6-2 and 0-1 in the UFC if you count the Ultimate Fighter finale fight. This is a guy Brian Battle beat, for the Ultimate Fighter contract. I don't think his record includes the fights on the show, so he does have a little bit more experience than it shows. The show was at middleweight. Now he's down at welterweight. He's going to be a really big guy for the division. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage here. And he has a decision loss on his record to Sean Brady, so that's impressive that he, went to decision with him. He has big power in his hands. He rocked Battle really bad in the first round of their fight. He's going to have the striking advantage in the spot for sure. He's been out for almost 2 years. I'm assuming he's been training really hard for his next shot in the UFC, so he'll probably look much improved coming into this fight. If he stuffs the takedowns, this is going to be his fight all day, and everybody's going with Cosce on Tapology, but I'm going to take Urbina by KO round 1 or 2. He's going to be the way bigger guy here, and he does have pretty decent takedown defense, and he fights really aggressive. He comes out really aggressive and pushes a really tough pace, so I'm willing to take the underdog shot on here. You know, I feel like he's going to be the underdog. I don't remember what the line is, but I'd like to take the underdog shot on him. I'll definitely have him mixed in some parlays and stuff. So next up, we got Victoria Leonardo taking on Natalia Silva, and Victoria Leonardo is 33 years old. Sorry. 33 years old, 5'5" with a 64-inch reach. She is 9-4 and 1-2 in the UFC. And you know, I feel sorry for this lady. You know, she's had nothing but tough fights except her last fight with Mandy Bohm. She got Manon Farot in her debut, got her arm broken in her second fight against Melissa Gatto. She has some wins by sub on her record. She's been knocked out 3 times. There's not a lot of places in this fight where I believe she's going to have the advantage, you know, so I can't really say too much for her in this spot. She may have a power advantage on the feet, but I'm not certain of that either. She's taking on Natalia Silva. She is 26 years old, 5'4" with a 65-inch reach, 14, 5-1, and she is 2-0 in the UFC. So she's currently on an 8-fight win streak. She has very good jiu-jitsu, particularly her armbar. She has 5 wins by armbar on her record. She had a really beautiful spinning back kick knockout in her last fight. So she's gonna have a 1-inch reach advantage. She's a pretty girl. She has everything the UFC wants in a prospect, you know, to push someone toward the top that fans are gonna like. She has good hip tosses, very good takedown defense, good Muay Thai, and I think this is her fight all day, man. And I kind of want to take her to win by decision, but I'll take her to win by submission. You know, round 3 submission. Imagine she's going to be a very big favorite too. I don't remember what the line is on that. I need to start writing those down so I can tell y'all on these videos. Next up, we got Chase Hooper taking on Nick Fiore. And Chase Hooper is 23 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. He's 11-3-1 and 3-3 in the UFC. So in my opinion, you know, Chase is a prime example of someone that the UFC kind of pushed too much too soon on. He has really good jiu-jitsu. I mean, he's world-class jiu-jitsu, very good. But his striking is horrible. His head movement is non-existent. And after how he looked in his last fight, I'll never put money on him again. You know, he went out there and walked right into every punch that Steve Garcia threw at him. And, you know, so I honestly feel like at this point he's kind of one-dimensional. He's very tall for the weight class, but he just doesn't know how to use it, you know, in his striking. And that's a shame because he's going to have, you know, a 2-inch reach advantage in this spot. He's definitely got a lot of, you know, potential, man. It's a bad thing whenever you're this young, you know, and you're going out here and getting knocked out. And, you know, I mean, I would hate to see him, you know, 25, 26 years old, and he's one of those guys that already gets knocked out 5 times in a row and gets cut from the UFC. You know, that's a very sad thought to have, you know, for such a young guy. So, yeah, I feel like he should probably have made the rounds on, you know, the Bellator and stuff like that before the UFC. But he does have a 3-3 record. He's won some fights, so, you know, I guess maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but he's taking on Nick Fiore. He is 25 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. He is 6-1 and 0-1 in the UFC. And I wasn't very high on this guy before his last fight, mainly because of his record looking kind of padded. He fought some tough guys with records like, or he fought some, sorry, not tough guys. He fought guys with records like 6-19, 15-13, 15-91. You know, but he came in on short notice in his last fight, and you know he fought the number 1 guy in Poland in his weight class. So that's a big risk to take, you know, for somebody who's relatively unheard of, you know, and yeah, he lost, but he made a good account of himself, you know, because Rebchecki is very good, or is it Rebecki? I don't remember, whatever that guy's name was, Matuis Rebecki. Nick trains with the New England Cartel, you know, with Rob Font and all those guys. He has good Muay Thai, you know, lots of finishes on his record, subs and knockouts. He could take a punch. He doesn't give up on himself, you know, and I got to say, I think he's going to do pretty well in the UFC. You know, it might take him a little while to get his feet going or get his feet under him, keep going, but I think he's going to do very well at some point. And he throws really hard calf kicks. He has great cardio. I expect him to look real good here coming, you know, in on full camp. And I got him to win. I think he's going to knock Chase Hooper out, man, you know, first or second round KO. Next up, we got Lear Latifi taking on Rodrigo Nascimento. Lear Latifi is 40 years old. He is 5'10 with a 75-inch reach. He is 16-8 and 9-6 in the UFC. This he's 40 now. He's getting up there in age. He was a two-time national wrestling champion, and I think he's from Sweden. And he's very short for a heavyweight. His fights usually consist of him smothering guys up against the cage a lot and trying to get the takedowns and catching kicks to get the takedowns. And I don't put a whole lot of stock in his last couple wins. If he beat Tanner Boser. I guess Tanner Boser's pretty good, but that was a split decision. And then he beat Oleski Olenek, which is a almost 50-year-old guy. That so that doesn't really tell you much about where he's at right now. And he's taking on Rodrigo Nascimento. He's 9-1-1 and 2-1-1 in the UFC. And so his one official loss in the UFC was to Chris Dawkins, which doesn't look good in hindsight. He has good jiu-jitsu, doesn't have the best takedowns, though. He actually pulled Alan Badeau right on top of himself during that fight, which wasn't a good look. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here. I feel like this fight could go either way. Rodrigo won't be able to get Latifi down. I know that. And I guess I'm going to hope that Latifi is the underdog, and I'm going to take the dog shot on him in this spot because I think if Rodrigo can't get him down, Latifi will have a pretty good chance on the feet. So, because Rodrigo doesn't have the best striking, he is very powerful though. So, next up we got Karolina Kowaliewicz taking on Vanessa Demopoulus, and Karolina is 37 years old. She's 5'3" with a 64-inch reach. She is 14-7 and 7-7 in the UFC. And Karolina's fought the better competition by far between these two girls. If we look at her record real quick, it doesn't really do her justice just to see a 14-7 record. She's also pretty hot, so let's see here. So her last two fights, she beat Silvana Gomez Juarez. That was a unanimous decision. She looked really good in that fight. And she beat Felice Herring by rear naked choke before that. And she did have a 5-fight losing streak before that. But I guess the Jessica Penne fight wasn't a good look. But, you got, I can't remember how to say her first name. Jan that just won this last weekend that beat Jessica Andrade. She went to a decision with her, which in hindsight, is a pretty good look. She, before that, she fought Alexa Grasso, the current champ. Before that, she fought Michelle Watterson Gomez, and she fought Jessica Andrade before that. And if you go down, the line, she fought Claudia Gadelia, Joanna Georgiachek, Rose Namajunas. She beat Rose Namajunas. She fought a lot of tough people, man. So, and she's getting up there in age. Honestly, I thought she was done when she was on that losing streak, but she's bounced back and looked pretty good. Not the best of competition, but she's looked pretty good in her last two wins. But she's very well rounded. She's really improved her ground game a lot. Both her latest wins, have been a lot of groundwork and a lot of takedowns and controlling the back a lot. Taking the back and riding the back out and trying to get the rear naked chokes. And so that impressed me that she's still making improvements in her game. And I'm very happy that the UFC gave her some fights that she could win, instead of just putting her up against killer after killer, and she's getting a second run because of that. So, and she's looked pretty good. She used her jab very well. She's a good kickboxer. She's going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage here. So that could really serve her well in this spot, that long reach. And she's taking on Vanessa Demopoulus. She is 34 years old, 5'2", with a 59.5-inch reach, 9-4. And 3-1 in the UFC. So I think Vanessa is a very cool person. She has a good personality, but I wasn't very high on her. But she goes out there and she finds ways to win, man. I was under the impression that she wasn't very good, but she's come out and won 3 fights. So she's improving constantly. Hasn't really fought any good competition yet in the UFC. The Jin Yu Fry fight was close. A lot of people thought she lost there. So I guess she's a pretty good fighter. She has good submissions. She's very flexible. I think she used to be a stripper. She pushes a tough pace. She really does, go out there and go for it. But based on Carolina's experience and the fact that she's fought the way better competition and has more impressive wins, I'm going to be taking her to get the win by decision in this spot. I'm hoping she's an underdog. I don't remember if she is or not. Next up, we got Emily Ducote taking on, it was supposed to be Polyana Viana, but I believe they changed it around. I just found out this earlier today, so whatever. She's taking on Loopy Godinez now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, unless they changed it. But I was under the impression that she was fighting Loopy Godinez now, but now I got to check because that's going to drive me crazy. Hold on a second. Let me see. I could have swore I saw him switch it to Loopy Godinez. Well, if it's on Tapology, then I'm assuming that the fight's still on. I don't know. I'll go ahead and I already know what my pick is either way. I'll go ahead and go over Emily Ducote and Polyana Viana. Um, so uh, Emily Ducote is 29 years old, 5'2" with a 63-inch reach. She's 12-7 and 1-1 in the UFC. She showed to have good striking in her debut. She boxed up Jessica Panay, but couldn't handle the Muay Thai of my girl Angie Hill. So, Angie's a pretty good striker, great Muay Thai. So, I didn't notice it until, when I got back and watched those fights, that Angie was in the corner of Panay whenever, Ducati beat her. So maybe she's getting some revenge for that or whatever. But, Ducati's a BJJ black belt. Doesn't use it very much, here lately, but maybe we'll get to see it in this fight. She throws a lot of leg kicks, throws good combinations. She'll throw punches to the body pretty often. She counters really well. I'm not totally sure on her grappling, but she's pretty solid, so I like what I've seen, and I'm assuming that she's good on the ground, based on the black belt and everything. So she's taking on Polyana Viana. She is 13-5 and 4-4 in the UFC. She is 30 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. And so I'm gonna cut it pretty short on this one, man. Viana may have a grappling advantage, but her wins haven't been over anybody that I find really impressive. Viana's gonna have the height and reach advantage. She'll have a 4-inch reach advantage. So I don't think that's anything that Ducati's not used to. And I'm gonna take Ducati to get the win by decision. And if it's Loopy Godinez that she's fighting, I'm still gonna be going with Ducati. So. Is it Ducati? I don't know. But I'm still going with Emily Ducote on that. And I think if it plays out on the feet, Emily's a better striker than Loopy Godinez is. And I actually thought Loopy Godinez, lost her last fight, against Cynthia Calvillo or whatever her name was. So next up, we got Andre Fialho taking on Joaquin Buckley. This should be a really good fight. Excuse me, I'm going to get some water real quick. So, Andre Fialho is 29 years old. He's 6 foot tall with a 74-inch reach. He is 16-6 and 2-3 in the UFC. Andre's, a very tough, very experienced guy. He's been around, and even before the UFC, he fought in Bellator and the PFL and XMMA. All the major organizations that outside the UFC, other than one, pretty much. He has very heavy hands, pretty good striking. He came into the UFC and he fought Michel Pereira on very short notice and went to a decision with him, so that was a good look. Then he got 2 knockouts over guys that I think have been since cut by the UFC. Miguel Bieza. If they haven't cut Miguel yet, I think he's on like a 3-fight losing streak right now. And then Cameron Van Camp, was cut in the UFC and never won a fight in the UFC. So yeah, that it was a good look and not a good look, based on the level of competition. He kind of got exposed in his last 2 fights, in my opinion. He did have his moments in his last fight, but was still knocked out by Muslim Salikov. So, and he's always live for a knockout. He's always got a puncher's chance. But I see this being a pretty tough fight for him, especially coming off 2 knockout losses in a row. So, uh, yeah, and Jake Matthews knocked him out, and Jake Matthews hasn't been looking very good here lately. So, and he's taking on Joaquin Buckley. He is 29 years old, 5'10" with a 76-inch reach. He is 15-6 and 5-4 in the UFC. And I'm a really big fan of Buckley's. He's never in a boring fight. This is going to be his welterweight debut, so I think he's going to look pretty good at 170. I mean, I never really thought he was that undersized for middleweight until the Nasruddin Imavov fight. I mean, it looked like a heavyweight fighting a lightweight in that fight. The size difference. It was really a really big. If you go back and watch that fight, the size is of them two. It look like they don't belong in the same weight class. So Buckley has big power, and he's really made a lot of improvements throughout his career in the UFC. He looked really good in the Curtis fight before he got caught and put out, but he was putting out a ton of volume. He has wrestling in his back pocket, even though he doesn't really like to use it. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight. He has pretty good takedown defense. His power carries over into the 3rd round. His footwork has come a long way. This fight is definitely going to be on the feet, in my opinion. But Buckley does have the option for the takedown if he wants it, I think. He's faster, he's more explosive, and I got to go with Buckley in this spot, and I'm taking him to win by round 2 KO. Next up, we got Michael Johnson taking on Diego Ferreira. And Michael Johnson is 36 years old, 5'10" with a 73.5-inch reach. He's 21-18 and 13-14 in the UFC. So yeah, this guy's a legend. He's been around since 2010. They don't talk about it much anymore, but back in the day, I can't remember who his head coach was back then. But his striking base was Dutch kickboxing, which is something that used to be a lot bigger deal back in the day. You don't ever hear anybody talking about that anymore. But whatever. I don't know why I brought that up, but he's an amazing striker. He throws great calf kicks. Really throws kicks really great to all levels. He throws good straight punches for the most part. He's very technical. I'm honestly surprised that he's only 36 years old with this many fights in the UFC, man. And I really thought he was on his way out after the Clay Guida loss. That wasn't a very good look. But he bounced back with some good performances, and I really didn't think he was going to win his last fight either. And that Jamie Malarkey fight, was way closer than I expected it to be. Who was his last fight? Mark Diakase. Yeah, he beat him up, man. And I thought Diakase was definitely going to be able to get the takedowns in that fight. And so, the UFC has finally given him winnable fights. He's very fast. He has a great jab. His weaknesses have always been his takedown defense and his submission defense. He has 9 losses by sub on his record. And later in his career, he's usually, pretty gassed out in the 3rd round. So, especially if he's getting grappled, and taken down. He's taking on Diego Ferreira. He is 38 years old, 5'9" with a 74-inch reach. He's 17-5 and 8-5 in the UFC. And just a few years ago, man, he was on a 5-fight win streak in the UFC, and he was, really on his way, toward the top of the division, and he's taken 3 losses in a row, but so he's on a losing streak right now, but his losses have been to really tough guys. He has great jiu-jitsu. He has 7 submission wins on his record. I think he's like a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, 3rd degree brown belt, I think. And he fights well in the clinch. He has good trip takedowns. He takes the back really quick, transitions very well. He pressure fights. He's always moving forward. The game plan for him obviously is going to be he needs to get the takedowns and the submission. This fight could really go either way. I know everyone on Tapology is going with Johnson, but I think if Diego gets the clinch, he will get the takedown, and if he gets the takedown, he will get the submission. So he's going to have to avoid the early strikes of Johnson, and if he can get him down in the 1st round, Johnson will be considerably slowed down by the 2nd. So I'm going to take the risk on Ferreira by submission round 2. I think he's going to end up being an underdog, so probably definitely have that mixed up in a parlay or two. Next up, we got Maheshate taking on Vyacheslav Borshchev. This is going to be a really fun fight. uh, so Maheshate is 23 years old, very young guy. Didn't make weight his last time out, so keep an eye on that. He's 6 foot tall with a 71.5 inch reach. He is 9-2 and 1-1 in the UFC. And yeah, it's going to be a very fun fight. Both these guys have no ground game whatsoever and really crappy takedown defense, but they are both amazing strikers. And Maheshate has a really good right hand. He's a sniper. Great fast kicks and combination. He throws good elbows on the feet. He's very tall for the weight class. He's going to have a 2.5 inch reach advantage. In my opinion, like I said, he kind of got exposed in his last fight. It wasn't a quick knockout, and Rafa Garcia was able to take over and beat up on him and took him down, and just he didn't look very good in that third round. Even though he cut Garcia open and there was blood everywhere, Rafa was still clearly winning all those rounds. So, that's so he's not everything everybody was making him out to be with his quick knockout over Steve Garcia and his knockout on the Contender Series. So. He's taking on Vyacheslav Borshchev. He is 31 years old. He's 5'11 with a 69-inch reach. He is 6-3 and 1-2 in the UFC. So I'm a big fan of this guy's striking. He has a really long kickboxing background and everything before the UFC, before MMA. But other than that, the story is basically the same with these guys. Exposed with their takedown defense in their last few fights, and they fight the same way, so what it comes down to is who is the better striker. And even though I've gotten burned twice on this guy already, I'm going to pick him again because I think Borshchev's striking is superior to Maheshate's striking, and I think Borshchev is more of a world class striker than Maheshate is. And I might be wrong. This fight could be either way, but I'm going to take Borshchev to win by decision. And the reason I'm going with decision is because neither of these guys have ever been knocked out. So. But yeah, I think Borislav's going to get this one finally, and I think they gave him this fight, that way he had a chance at winning because his takedown defense is horrible, and you would have think it would have improved a lot being at Team Alpha Male, but it's looked horrible. Next up, we got the co-main event: Edmund Shahbazyan taking on Anthony Hernandez. And Edmund Shahbazyan is 25 years old, 6'2", with a 74-inch reach. He is 12-3 and 5-3 in the UFC. And this guy had a lot of hype on him, not too long ago. Let's take a look at his record. So, at one point, he was on a 4-fight win streak in the UFC, I believe. Beat somebody on the Contender Series, Antonio Jones, beat Darren Stewart on the Ultimate Fighter finale, knocked out Charles Byrd, submitted Jack Marshman, and the Brad Tavares win is what shot him up there, and they were really pushing him to the top of the division. It was a head kick knockout, so obviously that's very impressive, especially at the time. Brad Tavares is really good. And then he lost to Derek Brunson, he got exposed with his takedown defense. He lost to Jack Hermanson, and then Nasruddin Imavov beat him with elbows from the crucifix position, so he got out-grappled by Imavov, who I don't consider to be a very good grappler. And he was out for a good long time, about a year, and then came back and fought Dolce Lingambula. And he ended up winning that fight, with the flying knee. But honestly, he looked good in that fight, but, I mean, so it's I don't think Dolce's even with the UFC anymore, so that's, you got to consider that. It was an impressive win, but he's not an easy guy to knock out, I don't think, or has he been knocked out a few times? I don't remember, but so Edmund's got really good striking. He manages distance well, throws to the body a lot, very fast punches. He's probably going to have the striking advantage in this fight for sure. He has struggled a lot with the takedown defense in the past and the submission defense and awareness. So, that's not a good thing when you're fighting Anthony Hernandez, man. And Anthony Hernandez is 29 years old. He is 6 foot tall with a 75-inch reach. He's going to have an inch reach advantage here. He is 10-2 and 4-2 in the UFC. And I think this guy's really good, man. I love the way he fights. It's nonstop pressure, great takedowns, good submissions, very good anaconda choke. He has really good cardio. He never gets tired, and that's his best weapon. So, He's looked better every time we've seen him. This is going to be his toughest test here, probably, as far as like the best striker that he's faced so far. Hernandez throws good elbows in the clinch, good knees as well. He puts out a ton of volume, and I'm going to be picking Hernandez to get the win here. I think his grappling is going to get him, get him the win. I think he's going to be able to get the takedowns here. As long as he can get out of the way of Edmund Shahbazyan's punches early in the first, he'll be all right. And yeah, I'm going to take him to get the win by a third round anaconda choke, man. And next up, we got the main event. Mackenzie Dern taking on Angela Hill. And I already went over this fight, on my my last video. And if you remember, I picked Dern to win, but I said I was going to put a little money on Angela Hill for the underdog money. And what I ended up doing is doing a underdog parlay with Douglas Silva de Andrade, which is going to be fighting this weekend, and Angela Hill it was a good plus money parlay, and that's still there because these two are still fighting. So Mackenzie Dern is 30 years old. She is 5'4" with a 63-inch reach. She's 12-3 and 7-3 in the UFC, and so she isn't a very good striker. She has really good submissions, great jiu-jitsu. Doesn't really have good takedowns though. So it's the same story with her. Every fight. She lost to Marina Rodriguez. She got a win over Tisha Torres, which I thought Tisha Torres won that fight clearly. And then Yan, the girl who beat Jessica Andrade a few days ago. Cops are going by outside. Yeah, she lost to her, and Mackenzie Dern's a good-looking girl, man. The UFC's really been trying to push her and giving her good fights and stuff, but the more I think about it, man, she doesn't really have, and that's typically Angela Hill's, weakness is the takedowns and submission defense or whatever. But Angela Hill is 38 years old, 5'3" with a 64.5-inch reach. She is 15-12 and 10-12 in the UFC. And she's fought everybody. If you look at her record, she beat Emily Ducote last time out. She beat Loopy Godinez before that. Before that, she lost to Verna Jandiroba. She gave up the takedowns. Didn't really take any damage in that fight. She lost to Amanda Lemos before that, but I thought she clearly won that fight, and Dana White even said that he thought she won that fight. So before that, she lost to Tisha Torres. She beat Ashley Yoder, Michelle Watterson Gomez. She lost to her. She beat Loma Lukbumi, another talented Muay Thai fighter. She's fought a whole lot of people, man. Jessica Andrade, Nina Nunes, Courtney Casey, Rose Namajunas. So, but the story with Angela Hill's, the same. She's a very talented Muay Thai striker. Her grappling has improved quite a bit, man. She's really been working on it. I know she's 38 years old, but she's one of probably my favorite female fighters. She's really cool, man, and I love her style of fighting. And she's always pushing it even harder in the third round. And this being a 5-round fight, I think that's going to benefit her a lot. And originally I was going to pick Dern and still put my money on Angela Hill. But I'm switching my pick to Angela Hill, man. It's probably going to bite me in the ass, but I'm not going to be afraid to go with the underdog, especially if, why am I going to pick Dern and then, put a little bit of money on Hill and not pick Hill? So I think a 5-round fight's going to be good for her here in the spot. And maybe Dern will slow down and Angela take over in the the later rounds. But it's going to be Angela Hill on the feet all day for sure. She's going to beat up Mackenzie Dern with those leg kicks and put out tons of volume. So I'm going to pick Angela Hill. Fuck it, And as far as that's all my picks. And as far as bets go, some of my books. There's one of my books has all the stuff up for this fight right now. For some reason, Bovada doesn't have these fights up yet. I don't know why. So I haven't been able to do as much, parlaying and stuff as I want to yet. And coming off a really good profitable week, man, I'm not gonna fucking kill myself doing a whole bunch of plays and stuff on this card. I'm gonna keep it pretty simple. So right now I've got a plus 100 underdog play on Nick Fiore. He is, and I just got a quarter unit on that. Um, and then I've got to play a minus 150 play on Joaquin Buckley. I got 1 unit on that. And there are going to be, like I said, I haven't been able to put together parlays and stuff yet, like I've been planning on, but I wanted to get the video out. So, if you check up, go to my Instagram, high kick underscore fight picks, and I'll post my parlays up on there. That way y'all can see them and stuff, and I'll post them on the community page in my YouTube channel, and that stuff will pop up on your feed if you're subscribed to my channel. So please like and subscribe, man, and I really appreciate all you guys. I'm getting close to 200 subscribers. It feels like I've been doing this for like a year now, and it's really only been like 3.5 months or something like that. I think I started doing this in February, so I really appreciate all you guys. I enjoyed talking to all you guys and stuff like that. And also, I'm going to continue and do the contest again on this card since nobody won on the UFC 288 card. I forgot to put that at the beginning of this video, but I'll go back and add it. But yeah, so if you want to win a autographed pitcher, Donald Cerrone or Demetrius Johnson or Holly Holm, or an autographed UFC glove, it's autographed by Killer Miller. On this card, pick 3 fights. You got to pick the winner, the method of victory, and you only get 1 decision. So the other 2 have to be sub or knockout. And comment on this video below. And if you get it right, if you're the first one to get it right, you'll win you'll win. I'll let you pick which one you want. So you'll have to hit me up on Instagram when I tell you who you won. So you'll have to talk to me on there. But I'll turn the comments off, the day of the fights, and I'll go back and put this at the beginning of the video so y'all guys catch it. Might not catch it at the end of the video, but yeah, not very many people tried to win the Prince, man. I was kind of disappointed. It was only a couple people, but whatever, man. So, but I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for everything y'all do, man. I really appreciate it. It makes me feel good to have people that actually care about what I say and look forward to my videos. So I appreciate it, man. You guys take it easy. I'm out of here.